and Sheena's with us, and then that's the mom, and then we got good-looking boy over here, who is growing up. I mean, as we sit here and go, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, and he's got a phone now. He walked up in here today and said, "I got a phone." I'm like, "Really?" He pulls it out. I'm like, "Man, look at it." And Mike says when he walks in, he goes, "Man, you are growing up," which is great news, right? So, Mama.
Yeah.
So everything kind of started when he was 8. He was diagnosed.
Yes.
Now he's 11. How's everything going now?
It's going wonderful. No sign of any cancer. He was going every 3 months getting checkups. Now it's every 6 months because he's 3 years out. And I always tell folks who knew when he was diagnosed, and now they're looking at him and say, "Oh, how's your son?" And I just look at him and I push him. "Oh, he's fine. Ain't nothing wrong with that boy. Nothing at all. Don't baby him. He's good. All he does is take a little shot every day, and that's it. You wouldn't even know."
And what's the shot for?
It's the growth hormone, because where the tumor was, the growth hormone from the brain isn't secreted to the body, so he has to take a growth hormone shot that we rotate on different body parts every night, and he'll probably have to take it until he's about 16, 17.
Yeah, that's okay. You're getting used to it, though, right? Yeah. All right, but your voice is like deeper. You're like, I mean, you're about as high as Clay Aiken, but you talk about Barry White. I'm not really sure what's going on.
I got a mustache too.
Do you? Mustache. Oh, that is so funny. All right, well, start for everybody who doesn't know. Tell us about the story. And again, so many of these start with, I don't know. He just seemed like something was wrong. And the bad thing is that a lot of these stories down there, well, I took it to this doctor and they said they thought it was this, and this doctor and they thought it was this, but it ended up being a brain tumor.
Okay, well, it started off and it was 2008. He was having headaches. And really, I thought he was just being a mama's boy. Didn't want to go anywhere and wanted to be around me a lot. And so we took him to his regular doctor, and they tried to diagnose him as having juvenile migraines. So they gave him medication for that, but they just kept getting worse. And then we noticed that the movement in his right eye was limited. And they still had not been able to set up an MRI. They didn't set up an MRI until June 2nd, because that was on a Monday. But by the time June 2nd came around, the eye was still moving funny, but he didn't have the headaches. And he was just running around having a good time. We went in for the MRI, had the MRI, came home. We're cooking dinner because he hadn't eaten all day, and they called back and they're like, "Well, there's something on the MRI and we need you to come back in." And I'm busy. I'm typing on the computer because my husband's out of town, so we're working on the computer. My oldest daughter's fixing dinner. I'm like, "Oh, no, nothing's wrong. He's fine. He's fine. We don't need to come back in." He said, "No, we need to come back in because we see something." So at this point, I'm like, "What are you seeing? Can't you just tell me this over the phone?" And so they said, "No, we need you to come in. We need to come in now. Come into the emergency room." And so we just stop what we're doing and go into the emergency room. And all this time, it's still like nothing is...
evident.
We just don't know what's going on. It's like, what's going on? And my thing is he's running around, he's fine. He hasn't eaten. Let's give him something to eat. What's happening? Because we had never heard of anyone, having cancer. No children. You always hear of adults, lung cancer or something like that. And so we stayed that night. They did another CT scan. They admitted him. I stayed with him. To be honest with you, I don't even remember how my daughters got home because it was all a blur. And they did another MRI Wednesday. They went in to do the resection to try to take it out to see what it was. And then that night was when he, after surgery, the doctors, while he was in recovery, the doctors were telling us what it could be, what they thought it was. And they kept saying tumor, and it still didn't occur to me it was cancer because nobody said the word cancer.
The C word.
They never said it. And I had a couple of days I had to ask, but that night when they told me, well, actually they told my husband I was in the room, but I didn't hear anything. And most folks know the Charlie Brown where it's like wah wah wah. That's what I heard. If I heard anything, it's almost like the room was the room was closing in. I couldn't hear what they were saying. I knew it was serious. And all I knew was my child, who was just running around a few days before, now you're telling me that there's something wrong with him, because we thought he had migraines. And I think my husband was like, well, can she step out the room? And so he came out and he told me, you need to come home. I said, I'm not leaving, because I hadn't left since we were admitted that Monday. So he's like, no, you need to come home because I need to tell you what the doctor said, and you just need to take a break. So on the way home, he said, do you want the bad news or do you want the worst news? I don't believe there was a good news option in there.
And where were you? In the car?
We were in the car, and he was driving. And anybody who knows me knows I'm a control freak. I like to drive my own car. I like to, but at this point, it was just like, whatever, you could have put me on the back of a bike and I wouldn't have noticed.
And where was Shango? Was he?
Shango was still in recovery because the surgery was all day.
Yeah.
He had gone into surgery that morning, and I want to say it was dark by the time he came out.
Yeah.
So we had he was still in PQ, the pediatric ICU.
So you're in the car, you're on the way home?
We're in the car, we're on the way home, and he's saying, well, it could be this type of tumor, where they could just go in and take it out and he's fine. Or worst case scenario, which is what it was, is that it could be this other type of tumor where I think they said he could have anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to live, based on how the treatment goes. And so at that time, I'm sorry, my heart is hurting.
That's okay.
So at the time, and that's kind of what I'm like, I know you're not telling me this, no.
This can't be right.
This can't be right.
Yeah.
And my husband he was just really straightforward. He's like, no, this is what, the doctor says. And I'm thinking 6 months, he's 8. Why can't he just have a headache and we give him some ibuprofen or Advil or something?
And where was this? What hospital was this?
We were at Duke.
Yeah.
Love the hospital.
Yeah.
Duke University Medical Center. And so at this time, I can't function. I can't think about anything. He was like, we just gonna have to, see about the treatment. Like I said, all I could think of was, I just want to get back to the hospital.
What kind of treatment did they give him after the surgery?
After the surgery, while he was still in the hospital, they had to go in, they had to input a shunt into his brain because cerebral fluid was not flowing from his brain, and so it was causing pressure. So they put in a shunt so that the fluid could be relieved. After they determined that it was cancer, actually, I had to ask the question. I was like, is it cancer? And they had to tell me yes.